Yeah, hello. Good day, everyone. My name is Honorary Victor, and I am a neurology aspirant. I will be doing a review of the Ching Ching's comprehensive review in clinical neurology. Basically, I am going to go through the series of questions. My aim is to finish the entire book, and after when I do each question, I'm going to do a little explanation and let's see how it goes. So this is actually my first recording, so please kind pardon my arms, my fillers, and let's see how it goes. So we're going to start with the very first question, the very first chapter, which is cranial nerves and neuroophthalmology. And I'm going to start with question one. The very first question is this: which of the following represents the actions of the superior oblique muscle? A. The primary action is eye elevation and secondary action is intorsion. B. The primary action is eye depression and the secondary action is extorsion. C. The primary action is eye elevation and secondary action is extorsion. D. The primary action is eye depression and secondary action is intorsion. And E. The primary action is eye depression and secondary action is adduction. Now let's give ourselves a moment to think about it. All right, that's fine. So first things first, let's start with the question. The question says, which of the following represents the actions of the superior oblique muscle? Yeah, so let's start with the definition of primary, secondary, and tertiary action of muscle. So when you say the primary action of a muscle, basically we mean the main movement that is produced by by the muscle when the eye is in its neutral position. So, for example, if you're looking straight ahead, when the muscle contracts, what is the main action or the main movement that is produced by that muscle? Now we have what is called the secondary action of the muscle. The secondary action of the muscle is basically the second most significant movement that is produced by the muscle, usually due to the angle at which that muscle is inserted or the anatomical position. Then we have the tertiary action, which is basically the third most significant movement, which is as a result of complex anatomical location of a muscle. So let's give an instance. Let's use the basic one. Let's use the superior rectus muscle. And the superior rectus muscle is located right at the top of the globe of the eye. And that means that when it contracts, it causes the eye to elevate. So the primary action of the superior rectus muscle is elevation. Now, the superior rectus muscle is not perpendicular to the eye. Basically, it inserts at about 23 degrees. So that angle causes it to create some sort of intorsion. So the secondary action due to the angle at which the muscle is inserted into the eye causes intorsion. And then the third action of the superior rectus muscle is adduction. And basically, it pulls the eye inside. So, in summary, the primary action of the superior rectus muscle is elevation due to the location when the eye is in neutral position. The secondary action is intorsion due to the angle, and the tertiary action is adduction due to the complex anatomical location. Now, let's talk about the inferior rectus muscle. So, if you know the superior rectus muscle, then you can know that the inferior rectus muscle will just be the very opposite. Inferior rectus muscle will cause depression of the eye, it will cause extorsion of the eye, and it will cause adduction of the eye. So, the what you should note is that the tertiary action of both the superior rectus muscle and the inferior rectus muscle are the same, but the primary and the secondary action are opposites. That's the best way to remember it. So let's go again. Superior rectus muscle causes primary action is elevation, secondary action is intorsion, while the inferior rectus muscle, the primary action is depression, and the secondary action is extorsion. Now, let's take a look at the lateral rectus muscles and the medial rectus muscles. Now, basically, the lateral rectus muscles causes abduction of the eyes, and the medial rectus muscle causes adduction, that is um, adduction of the eye. There is no secondary and there are no tertiary actions for the lateral and the medial rectus muscles. Now, the next one is the um, superior and the inferior oblique tendons. Now, the superior and inferior oblique tendons, they have opposite primary and secondary actions, but they have similar tertiary actions. So what's the tertiary action of the superior and the inferior oblique muscle? Just recall that tertiary action for both of them is abduction, abduction. Yeah, abduction, abduction. So it abducts the eye, it abducts the eye away, so it abducts the eye. Then the primary action of the superior oblique is actually intorsion, right? Intorsion, and the secondary action is depression. While for the inferior oblique, the primary action is extorsion, and secondary action is elevation. So think about it this way: superior oblique, superior is up, right? It causes intorsion, brings the eye into it, and then the secondary action is depression, while the tertiary action is abduction, abduction. While for the inferior oblique muscle, the primary action is extorsion outside, the secondary action is elevation, which is actually the opposite of the superior oblique, and the tertiary action is abduction. Now, back to our question. So our question here says that what is the which of these represents the actions of the superior oblique muscle? So superior oblique muscle. What do we know about superior oblique muscle? We know that from our discussion right now, we know that superior oblique muscle does what? It does abduction, abduction as its primary action. It also causes what? It causes depression of the eye, and then it causes intorsion of the eye. So let's see. A says the primary action is eye elevation. We all know that is wrong, right? Primary action is not eye elevation. At best, primary action is intorsion, and the second best action, which is actually the secondary action, is depression of the eye. So primary action is depression, possibly. Secondary action is extortion. That is wrong. The superior oblique causes intorsion of the eye. So that's wrong. The third is the primary action is eye elevation. That is wrong. That is the primary action of the superior rectus muscle. D, the primary action is eye depression. Now, actually, the primary action is eye intorsion, right? But the secondary action, which is the next best, is eye depression, and the secondary action is intorsion. So they actually flip this together. I will go for D because D is the most logical, but actually the primary action is intorsion and the secondary action is depression. So there's an issue with this question, but D is the most likely answer. So we'll go with D. So question number two, which says, which of the following represents the actions of the inferior rectus muscle? So we all know that the inferior rectus muscle, its primary action is depression of the eye, and its secondary action is extorsion. Then the tertiary action is adduction, adduction of the eye, right? So let's see. The primary action is eye elevation. That's off. Primary action is eye depression. Yes. The secondary action is extorsion. Correct. But let's hold on. Primary action is eye elevation. Nope. The primary action is eye depression, yes. Secondary action is adduction. So we know the adduction is the tertiary action. So that's not correct. The primary action is eye depression, secondary action is intorsion. No, the secondary action is extortion. So option B is correct. Question, which of the following muscles is not innervated by the oculomotor nerve? The first option is superior rectus. The second one is inferior oblique. The third is lateral rectus. The fourth is inferior rectus, and the fifth is medial rectus. Now, for this is actually a very simple question. During the mnemonic, cranial nerve innervation by the LR6, SO4, others 3, or the extraocular muscle innervation by the LR3, LR6, SO4, others 3. In the lateral rectus is innervated by the sixth nerve, which is the abducens nerve. The superior oblique is innervated by the fourth nerve, which is um, the trochlear nerve, and the others 3, the oculomotor nerve, is innervated by the it innervates the others. Yeah, good. So if we say LR3, SO4, meaning we're not supposed to have lateral rectus here, neither should we have the superior oblique in here, and lateral rectus is in here, so that's the answer, option C. Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate the time and effort taken to go through this. I hope to produce more of this, and I hope to do it in a very quiet environment. I will also try to improve on the way I communicate. Thank you.